largest accelerator programs of its kind in the world. We get 500 students from 14 schools across the New York University network, all competing over about 8 months and going through programming, boot camps and mentoring to get to this point today. There are 3 competitions. So this morning we did the Tech Venture competition, and now I'm thrilled to introduce for its 10th year the annual Social Venture competition, which recognises and supports a growing number of students and alumni interested in using their business and entrepreneurial skills to create innovative approaches to tackling social problems both here and abroad. The finalists that we're going through today are competing for $50,000 Social Venture prize. So right after the pitches conclude, you will have a chance to vote on your favourites. So we'll do a round of audience voting. The results of both will be announced in the awards ceremony tonight at about 5:15. I should mention too, for those who weren't here this morning, I'm Luke Williams. I'm the Executive Director for the Berkley Entrepreneurship Center for Innovation, which puts on the program here at Stern. Now, and also we hope you join us for the rest of the competition as well. So at 2:15, we're going over the new venture competition. And at 5:15, the award ceremony starts, and there'll be a reception later that goes through to about 8:30 tonight. And I'm pleased to acknowledge Jill Kickle, Clinical Professor of Business and Society, Program Area, and Jill's the Director of the Program in Social Entrepreneurship here at Stern. She's our social entrepreneurship guru. And she'll be announcing the award later today. And it's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panel of judges today. So we have Daniel Katz. Daniel? Hi. Daniel's the Senior Program Director at the Overbrook Foundation. He leads the Foundation's environmental giving in the areas of international biodiversity and sustainable consumption and production. He's the Board Chair and former Executive Director of the Rainforest Alliance, an organisation he co-founded in 1986 at the age of 24. 1986, Daniel, did you have an unusual hairstyle or was it pretty standard? 86? That's what's in the bio? Yeah.
So a lot like yours now.
Yeah, really? This is a bit retro. Damn, I'll have to get that taken care of. Jill Nagel. Jill is a manager at Bridgespan's New York office, and since joining the firm in 2008, she has worked with clients in the philanthropy and education fields. We have Michael Pollock. Michael is an adjunct professor here at NYU. In addition, he runs his family investment firm, Pollock Holdings, which has interests in a broad array of both public and private securities. Additionally, he established and now runs his private family foundation, SCA Charitable Foundation. SCA is active in venture philanthropy, primarily in India. Great to have you with us, Michael. And finally, Hans Taparia. Hans here, good to see you again. Both Jill and Hans were on the panel last year. Right, didn't recognise their hairstyle, though. Hans is co-founder and president of Preferred Brands International, PBI, established in 1995. PBI is a Stamford, Connecticut-based food company that manufactures a range of natural, convenient, specialty foods under the brand Tasty Bite. Now, in terms of format, what we're going through today is a total of 30 minutes. The teams have 10 minutes to pitch where the judges aren't going to interrupt. This is the team's chance to tell their story in a persuasive way possible. And then we've expanded the Q&A this year. So there's 20 minutes of Q&A where the judges can really get into more of the details of the business plan and challenge anything that they've heard. After the pitches, the judges will convene to another room. They'll go over the final decision, and again, those results will be announced later. So it's my pleasure to introduce the first team pitching in the final of the Social Venture competition. In-house, so from in-house we have Justin, Ricky and Danielle here to pitch. In-house provides sanitation solutions for developing countries. Their initial product is a low-cost waterless toilet for slum populations without access to running water or sewer facilities. In-house toilets will significantly reduce open defecation and subsequent water contamination, as well as provide privacy, safety and convenience. So a warm welcome, please, for our first finalist.
Good afternoon.
For a moment, I'd like you to imagine that you're home sick in bed with diarrhea because you've drank contaminated water. Now imagine the only way you can use the restroom is by walking late at night through a dark slum to find a community toilet. We've all had a situation where we've been desperate to use the toilet. But what if you live somewhere where the ratio of people to toilet seats is 2,500 to 1? Over the next 10 minutes, we're going to go over the global sanitation crisis, the product we've developed to address it, and the business opportunity to save millions of lives. Worldwide, 2.6 billion people do not have access to proper sanitation facilities. This is 40% of the world's population. The people are forced to do something different. This is the terrible reality of open defecation. The people contaminate themselves, their family, their friends, and these deadly pathogens make their way into water. One gram of feces contains all of these contaminants. These contaminants make their way into homes, water supplies, and cause deadly bouts of diarrhea. Diarrhea kills 1.5 million people per year worldwide. And this is a product that you and I take for granted. Not having a toilet isn't just inconvenient. Toilets affect quality of life. If there's nothing else you take from this presentation, I need you to understand that toilets directly impact quality of life. We saw this firsthand in India. For some more context, in India, 626 million people still defecate in the open. 1,600 die daily from diarrhea, and 1,000 of these are children under the age of 5. And this is a slum in India. Some slums have a ratio of people to toilet seats as high as 2,500 to 1. In these homes, there are no in-home toilets. The toilets we're referring to are public toilets. People have to pay per use for these public toilets. Very long lines develop. We met a friend in the slum. His name is Samir. He told us about his experience with this directly. He said he wakes up very early in the morning to try and avoid these lines. He has a family. He makes minimum wage. Standing in these lines cut into his productivity time. To him, a toilet means more money. It means more time, increased productivity. Nationwide in India, a lack of toilets contributes to $10.7 billion in lost productivity. Meet Sandhya. We also met her in the slum. She prefers to defecate in the open for a different reason. She likes the privacy that it affords her. Yes, she's still exposed, but she feels far enough from people to feel comfortable. The issue is that level of comfort requires her to walk very long distances. It puts her at risk. In India, every 20 minutes, another woman is raped. To Sandhya, a toilet means safety and privacy. For these girls, a toilet means more time in the classroom. 25% of girls drop out of school when they hit puberty because proper sanitation facilities aren't available to them. So again, toilets are inextricably linked to a better quality of life. And what's the government doing? They're building sewers, but they're going very slow. One estimate says that it will take 3,000 years to build the sewers that are required in India today. And let's think about this some more. Water is a scarce and precious resource in developing countries. And our model of a sewer system here in the US is very wasteful. It is not the right solution for developing countries. But we do have a solution. It is a low-cost, waterless toilet designed for Indian slums. It features a biodegradable odor-reducing bag that users will collect after use of the toilet and dispose of in one of our waste receptacles. This allows the user to finish and forget, just as we're used to flushing and forgetting here in the United States. With regard to some of the features, it's squat designed and sit capable, increasing the addressable market. This is what we mean when we refer to cultural sensitivity. It is lightweight and portable, allowing the users to take it to wherever the privacy is. On top of that, they can conveniently store it within their slum home. We hit on the 5 main factors that impact proper toilet use: access, cost, time, cleanliness, and privacy. Our competition is open defecation, and with this design, we've developed a product that we believe is a suitable alternative, addressing the short-term pain points of our target customers while also addressing the long-term terrible effects of open defecation. And this is our competition. They fall into 3 main buckets. They're either too costly, not culturally sensitive, or were not designed with the very limited space of slum homes in mind. The product we've developed actually provides a very healthy margin. We're working initially with a company in Arkansas that I've worked with before called R&R Packaging. They've helped me develop custom products while I was working for Walmart in Arkansas. Initially, they will take us through to the beta prototype, and they will help inch us forward toward the production unit. At that time, we'll select a large-scale manufacturer, currently slated to be a company called Shanghai Sourcing. But of course, once we get to a production design, we will put it out to bid so that there's an opportunity for an Indian manufacturer to build the unit. At the end of the day, we'll make our decision based on cost and quality provided. And this is our development schedule. Over here, you see our alpha unit. Next month, we will travel to India and get first-hand feedback from our customers. This will inform the design of our beta prototype, which is slated to be completed in August. We will move to India in September and conduct a pilot through to December. We will have a final production design. We'll begin manufacture in January of 2014. We have to start small. In the slum community we've selected, we'll start in a very small, concentrated area, and we'll saturate it with our toilets. This will do 2 things for us. Number 1, it will help us perfect the collection model during our pilot. We need to understand how many waste receptacles are needed, where they need to be put, and how often we need to collect from them. Secondly, it will help us inform our social marketing efforts so that we can decide on the marketing campaign that has the most effect and allow us to scale quickly once the pilot is completed. We intend to use direct sales, door to door, so that our customers can see the product in their home and understand the convenience and benefits that it provides. Now, of course, we want this to be wildly successful, but we can't forget why we've done it in the first place. These 3 measures have been put in place to inform us of our progress toward our social goals. Number 1, the number of toilets we've sold. Number 2, the number of bags we've collected. And number 3, increased attendance in schools. I'm happy to say we have the perfect team to work on this problem. Our team includes large-scale, low-cost engineering, product design experience, nonprofit management, and international development experience. We have a great set of advisors. Urvashi Prasad from the Dell Foundation, Program Manager over Water and Sanitation. John Griffin, former President of National Geographic. And Swapnil Chaturvedi, a Gates Fellow who's received funding to research converting waste into energy. $50,000 goes a very long way for us. It will cover our upcoming travel. will allow us to completely cover the design and development of the beta prototype, and it will get us most of the way through our fall pilot. But this doesn't just stop at India. We have developed a product that works at a worldwide scale and saves lives. And that's our goal. We are going to provide safety for women. We're going to increase productivity. And we're going to keep children in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Doesn't Justin have such a nice, calming voice? He'd literally tell me I had like 5 minutes to live, and I'd say, oh, that sounds okay. All right, judges, what do we think? Who wants to kick us off the Q&A?
Can you talk us through a little bit of the bag strategy? How much are the bags going to cost? How many, the average family sizes, in India is incredibly dense. How many uses can there be? The whole pickup recycling, how you're sort of thinking through that. Anything unique to the bag?
Absolutely.
So the bags will be about 2 cents per bag to sell. They'll cost us about 1 cent. They'll be sold in boxes of 50 at like the local kiosks in the environments that will be selling them. They are single use. They are meant to hold both urine and feces. They'll be quick release, so you can get them out of the toilet quickly. Then they'll be brought, we'll have receptacles. As Justin said, we'll determine how many we need based on the neighborhood that it's in. We'll have some roving collectors that come around. We're thinking twice a week, but again, once we're there and on the ground, we'll be able to better determine the need. And then we'll be partnering with places that are going to take that waste and turn it into either energy or fertilizer.
Can I thank you very much. Nice presentation. And it's a great social, it could be of great social value, obviously. But let me add on to the bag question. Let me 2 parts. One is, are you more of would it be more of a portable sanitation company or, in fact, a bag company? And if you were looking at the compartments of the company, from toilet, bag, container, transportation, which of these areas is the most important? If you had to take one out, or where would you put most of your resources?
Yeah, so we're primarily putting our resource into the toilets. We're only tackling the pickup and transportation of the waste for the initial phase. What we've discovered is that there's companies that are starting to come up with solutions to turn the waste into energy and compost. So we're only doing this first part just so we can get a handle of what actually needs to happen to collect the waste. But we see our real value in making these toilets. The bags, initially, we want to keep them as low cost as possible, so we probably won't be making money there. But eventually, based on what we see on the ground, we hope to see if that's another way we can make some additional revenue.
So there are lots of portable toilets being developed. The Gates Foundation has this as a priority area. Unilever is doing this with IDEO. How is it that your portable toilet is different? What's better about it? What are the others not addressing?
I'll take that. I see differences in 2 areas. One is some of the issues we talked about on the competitor slide. Some of these new technologies are too costly or too big to fit inside of slum homes. I forget the second part.
Well, what is it about your portable toilet that's different, and what are the other ones doing? What are they doing wrong?
The other part of it is squat designed and sit capable. Right? This allows us to impact as many people worldwide as possible. The other designs, like I said, a little bit too expensive, not completely culturally sensitive. They're taking designs that are built for one particular area and trying to use it in as many places as possible. We're getting very basic, getting straight down to basic toilet use so that we can address as many people at one time.
So the squat component is the differentiating factor? Is that?
The squat component, and we'd say the low pricing. I mean, we're going to make this as cheap as possible and with good design. So I'd say that's where we're going to differentiate from our competitors.
Can you comment on that in terms of the difference in price between yours and, say, the Unilever toilet?
I'm not sure which Unilever, if you're talking about the Noah Learner.
Unilever is working on a toilet with IDEO. I don't know the name of the.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
we've looked at those. Unfortunately, they don't have the pricing available. There's slides that show pilots that they've been running, but they haven't revealed any pricing. What our advantage is that people are thinking of sort of these more complicated solutions. We're taking a very low-tech, low-cost approach, and we think we'll be able to beat our competitors' prices by doing so.
I think this is a terrific idea, a ton of breakthrough potential, nice presentation. One clarification and then one question. In your profit margin calculation, do you have cost in there for sales and marketing and then for the container removal?
We do have it for the commission sales, the door-to-door salesman. It would be a commission of $2 per sale. We hope that incentivizes them to both go out and sell as many units as possible. And often, since there'll be people in the community selling the product, we hope that gets customers really intrigued by it. And it gets it right into the home right away. They can see how easy it is. There's no installation required. It just gets right in the home. In terms of marketing, that's not really in our margin. We hope to cover those costs as well, but it hasn't really been factored into the margin there.
The commission too is not in the margin, so it's going to cut out of that 6.5%.
Right, the 6.5 is after we sell the
and any sort of commission we give to the direct sellers of the product.
Okay, and the container removal, is that in there right now?
That's in the pilot.
That's
right.
Sort of a startup cost, but it's not baked into that margin now.
Okay. And then have you tested whether a good portion of customers could pay $15 up front? And is there going to be financing available if that's not a possibility?
Yeah, so we hired a research firm, Sigma Research, to do some initial interviews. We actually found that willingness to pay was a little bit less than what we'd hoped for, but that was without any sort of marketing, so I think the range was about $10 to $12. Though we have seen that there are, it's very common in India for there to be payment plans. Even with the public facilities, many families are on payment plans where they pay a certain time or pay monthly, quarterly. So that's something we are exploring, and we're also going to explore microfinance options in the area as well.
Getting back to the bags, just to ask some clarifying questions. Where do you anticipate the waste to be stored? If you're only coming twice a week, right? Like one of the things that's striking, you take the pictures, and for anyone that's gone to India, there's trash everywhere, right? Yeah. And look, along the water, along everywhere there can be trash bags. There are trash bags thrown. So where do you anticipate? Think, in the average slum, population, the average family, 3, 4, 5, 6 people live there. That's a lot of waste to accumulate to be expected to be inside of the house. What sort of, I guess, social marketing or cultural changes are you going to try and make so this isn't just something where you just transfer from one place to another? It's hard, How are you thinking about trying to change the cultural perception of that?
So we would have the receptacles. Basically, we thought at the end of every block to 2 blocks within the slums, so that after each use you could drop it off there, and then the rovers would come around. As we said during our pilot phase, that's where we'd really explore how often we need to empty those bins and how many rovers we need. The idea is to start in a really concentrated area so that you're not worrying about having 100 units spread out over several miles. You really want to start small, in a small area, concentrate, see how the infrastructure needs to be set up. And then again, we would partner with larger firms who are using the whole energy conversion method right now. Was there a second? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
second part of your question?
I think you hit a key point, which is the aspect of social marketing and behavior change. So there's behavior change definitely needs to take place in order for our product to be successful. We've looked at campaigns that have arisen around washing hands. We saw one campaign where they used athletes to sort of teach best sanitation practices. What we also want to do is get into the schools immediately. So we think once we have the toilets in the schools, we'll be able to teach sanitation practices, provide them sanitation solutions, and also sort of train them about proper disposal. But that is a big component of what we need to do is sort of social marketing, behavior change, and we recognize that.
And is that worked through in your pilot expenses, or how do you anticipate tackling that cultural change part in this pilot?
Sure, we have a sales and marketing director in our plan, and it's shown in our financials. And we want that person based in India who obviously would have the cultural sensitivity that we think is required for it. Again, we would want to get out there, get on the ground as soon as possible, understand what makes people uncomfortable, what helps to make these changes. I mean, we've seen social campaigns here in the US around smoking, about the types of food currently that we're eating. You know, these things do take some time, but I mean, I think we can say that smoking has been a pretty successful, not smoking, it's been a pretty successful campaign here in the US. And so we would take these same principles and apply them there, obviously, though, being culturally sensitive to their needs.
You mentioned in your presentation that 626 million people defecate in the open. And I was kind of getting a little bit down and dirty in this. Is the problem the defecation in the street, or when they're using your portable toilet, what happens with their hands afterwards? You talk about doing hand washing, but is there water? Are they wiping? What happens to, what happens right afterwards? Because it seems to me that we could still have a problem, right, in fingernails, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you. The preference of the user is to wash after use. But if you can, as you see, open defecation does not give a opportunity to do that. So we are connected to that methodology of thinking, right? There's no opportunity to wash after using this that the public restrooms provide, but this gives you a great deal of convenience in other areas that open defecation doesn't provide for you.
So you're not sure?
So what typically happens in the slums is they have a set amount of water that they use for all their washing and cleaning purposes. So the idea is they'd be able to use that water.
Curious about you guys as a team. If you win $50,000, one of the things that happens that all of us here at Stern are doing lots of different things. So you win $50,000, do you all drop everything you're doing, relocate to India, and make this happen? Tell us about that a little bit and about your commitment longer term to doing something like this.
Sure. So the first thing that happens is we go and we do the first round of, with the alpha unit, we go over and we get the customer feedback. That happens next month. All three of us go, so we can have a really good understanding of what the customer feels about the product. Then in September, Justin and I return to open the Bangalore office. Ricky would stay here on the ground or be traveling, trying to get other capital for us to help subsidize the cost of running the organization, of the product if possible as well. We're all very, very committed to doing this. Everybody has given their 100% as a team, and as we said in the slides, the $50,000 could go a really long way, almost getting us all the way through our pilot test, which takes us into January when we really hope our sales start to begin.
We've still got some time, guys. Do you want more discussion?
Can you talk about, so the pilot, what specific partnerships have you identified? And talk specifically about the slum you've identified, who the key partners are that you've identified, and your confidence level in actually having that adoption on the pilot stage.
Okay. The slum we've identified is in Bangalore. We went to a slum primarily with the St. John's Research Institute. They're the partner we use initially, one for access to the slum, two for some initial translation services, and three to help us coordinate some of the feedback we're getting from the customers.
Can I go back to the bag as
Yes.
well? Because to me it seems like the business is primarily about the bag and what happens from the bag on, as opposed to the toilet, especially if this is a culture that's used to squatting. I mean, I could imagine 4 little poles that just hold a bag, and I don't know how that works, but how confident are you about this transportation system of being able to get rid of the bag, dispose of the bag, store the bag, dispose of the bag, And also, the bag itself, biodegradable is one thing, compostable is another. How that is made and the cost of that, it seems like your primary focus is on that product. But I wonder if it's in the right place.
Yeah, I think you have some very serious concerns, and we acknowledge that we need to spend more time on the ground figuring out what exactly it'll look like. But I can tell you something, our solution is going to be better than what's going on right now. There's not going to be bags of crap on the ground. People are going to be safely, we are going to improve the way that people are safely disposing of the waste. So there are some components we need to work on, but we have run the idea by people in India. People are really excited about it. But like we sort of mentioned before, there's this behavior change issue that sort of permeates everything we're doing. That's something we're going to tackle. But I can tell you one thing, it's going to be better than the current solution.
Well, maybe as a follow-up or a suggestion,
Yeah.
You guys may be familiar with a company called Sanergy.
Yes.
Yeah.
MIT startup, Acumen funded. Are there organizations like Sanergy, they're in Kenya, are there organizations like Sanergy in Bangalore or in India, or can you partner with them to address this issue? They're working mostly on fertilizer, using waste of fertilizer.
Right, so one of our advisors is probably the closest thing in India to what's going on in Sanergy, and that's Samagra, and he's working to really figure out the value of either creating energy or compost. But he's not there yet. It's still going to take some time.
You've got to identify a partner on the ground within that slum to work with you so you can focus on what you're good at.
For sure.
I would think
Yeah.
that. Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a similar lingering question in that I wonder how, I feel like there is a chance for the cost associated with having enough containers close enough to customers' houses, having people go and empty those containers on a regular basis could really explode. So I guess I know you're doing a pilot, but I'm wondering, can you tell us a little bit more about the cost modeling for that and why you're confident that that isn't going to kind of really upset your margins?
Sure. Again, when we collect the waste at the beginning, when we set up to the receptacles, have the roving components that come around and collect the waste, the idea is that's for us to show people that this is a viable business market. So the idea is that we don't continue to be the receptacle and the transportation. That comes from the partner organizations that are being the ones that actually change the waste to energy or fertilizer. We just want to show them how it needs to be done. Again, there's a ton of people in these slum areas that are entrepreneurs themselves that will want to come up with solutions as well to these problems and help us work this through. So we do have the cost built in for the pilot project period when we put those things in place, but afterwards it moves to the partner organization. It could be in the end that yes, maybe we have to share some of those costs. I mean, this is things that we have to figure out as we pilot things, but the idea is that it's not an ongoing cost for our organization.
I would just, I'd be more curious on the adoption and how it would go, because I would think that the actual problem wouldn't necessarily be getting a couple of those units in. It's the ongoing cost of the bags, particularly if it's 2 cents. To us, it may not sound like a lot, but to a family of 5, you can get to 30, 40, 50 cents a day, and you're talking about income that is $1 a day, $1.50 a day.
So the price of the bags at 2 cents is less than what it costs to use the public restrooms, which is their paying option right now, which is anywhere from 4 to 9 cents. So we estimated that per family, there's about 4 people living in each home. They would use the product at least twice a day, early in the morning, late at night, assuming the rest of the day they're out and about. Maybe they're still using public toilets, but you'll see in our business plan, overall, right now, it costs them, if everybody used the toilet in the 4-person family twice a day, every day, it's going to take up for a minimum wage, a family with an income that's equivalent to minimum wage, 21% of their wages, where with our products it's only 9%. And then again, in the second year it becomes even less because they've already bought the unit, which is the initial cost.
In your plan, I thought that was a very good point that you made. I would bring that up front because as much as there is this problem, the fact that they're already paying and you're addressing that point, I think is really good. The 3 of you, I don't know if you're business school students here. There are a million different places to go, many different countries. How did you end up deciding on this kind of a project? in India?
Well, we traveled to India as part of a class last spring. The point of the class was to become immersed in social issues. And when we saw what was going on, we couldn't ignore it. And I think part of it was just understanding, one, we need to do something about it, and two, that we might actually have some expertise that can help in solving the issue. And at that point, it's less about what could I do, it's more of a responsibility.
For all three of you? Your families, you told your families, hey, I'm going to go to India and go work on the waste issue.
Yes.
We get great responses. The interesting thing is, though, a lot of people ask that question, why India? And we explain our story, but then they tell us, well, have you looked at China? It's a huge problem there. Have you looked at Africa? And it's only sort of expanded our ideas of how big this can really be.
Are we done? Justin, Danielle, Ricky, congratulations for making it to the final. Well done.
Thank you.
You know, it got me thinking about my own toilet experiences. I need to go. As a little kid growing up in Australia, we did a lot of touring around Australia, and we're in the outback, and these old toilets, you had to flush them by pulling the chain. I think it was my first introduction to bathroom graffiti, because there was a thing on the back of the door that said, if you want a cool surprise, pull the chain before you rise. Now, I should mention that Dean Myers is here. I'll just let that sink in for a moment. Dean Myers is here recording the business concepts graphically, which is great. We're posting them out in the lobby there, so have a look afterwards. I think Dean's doing a great job. And also that reminds me, we're tweeting from the hashtag NYU Challenge, and the Twitter handle for the Berkley Entrepreneurship Center is at NYU Innovation. So feel free to take photos of these, post them to Twitter, share the conversation. And I was wondering how Dean would portray a toilet. He's gone the safe option there, but well done, Dean. We're going to have a quick transition and come back with our next team. Okay, next up in the social venture competition, we have Todd and Ryan here from the New American Tavern. So, their taverns will be a community's social hub and unofficial civic centre, purpose-built and programmed to foster and direct social capital. New American Taverns will ensure neighbourhoods have welcoming third places in which citizens can unwind, learn and connect. A warm round of applause for the New American Tavern. Thanks, guys.
Can you guys hear me in back? Yeah? Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Schechter. I'm the founder of the New American Tavern, and this is my partner, Ryan Tarpe. We're just really excited to be here. The process of participating in this competition has been extremely helpful for us and our team. We're excited to share our vision with you, and we're looking forward to your thoughts and your feedback. The New American Tavern is a vision to bring a new kind of gathering place to American cities. A bar, restaurant, and event space that caters to people who care about stuff that matters, an engine for building stronger community, and a catalyst for social innovation in a different kind of way. It's basically these three things smashed together. So what's TED really all about? Ideas and sharing ideas, but you can get them online. So why are people paying $1,500 to go there in person? Because we all know that it's not just about the ideas. It's about the opportunity to talk about them, to be in the room with the energy of that conversation, and about the collaborations and relationships that can come from sharing those ideas and talking about them together. How do we talk about things together? We meet up. And meetup is a phenomenon. People are finding ways to find each other in the real world to connect around shared interest, and they're making things happen. Many of these meetups are happening in bars and restaurants in our neighborhoods, not because they're the ideal places, but because people don't know where else to go. And while that works sometimes, the co-founder of Meetup told me the biggest problem that Meetup group organizers have is finding a space that they can continue to meet up at regularly. And this is particularly bad for people who are leading organizations that are values aligned. Group organizers who lead meetups or other kinds of groups, book clubs, etc., find finding places to be a challenge. They don't have regular customers or staff that enjoy them. It's a hassle. And they don't necessarily match their values. We've all been to a nonprofit happy hour fundraiser that's in a venue that clearly has no connection to the mission or social commitment. These organizations are looking for something better, and they're making do with what they have now. We know we can do better. Individuals are out there too, but not just the individuals who are leading these groups, people who would like to be involved but don't know how to put their toe in the water. So they're thinking, I love meaningful conversation over food and drink, but I'm not really sure how to get started. I don't know how to talk about politics and social change because my friends aren't really interested in that stuff. Or I don't really know how to engage with my community outside of college without joining an organization, and that's intimidating for me. Maybe I don't want to join a meetup either because I haven't met these people. And as we all know, a lot of people have social anxiety. So we're going to give these people what they want, the opportunity to have a better space for them and to be engaged in the way they want to be in their community. We're going to give them a community of shared interests. You can imagine a room filled with people who care about this stuff through breakfast, lunch, dinner, late night, and on the weekends. We're going to give them memorable food and drink they can count on and come back for. We're going to give them staff who cares about stuff that matters too, and that cares about mission and appreciates their being there over time. We're going to be transparent in our operations, paying attention to everything from how we source materials, how we work with suppliers, how we pay our workers, and how we engage our community. We're going to do a full range of collaborative programming, much of it self-generated in the community that's happening in dispersed locations now, but also self-generated to fill the gaps on programming that's missing. And we're going to create tools to allow attendees to connect with each other before, after, and in between events. I'm not sure if you can see, this is a photograph from one of the 40 events that we've held at bars and restaurants in New York City over the past year. And we provide basic interactivity technologies to allow people to communicate with each other. In this bucket, we have markers and name tags, so much like at this conference. These are a tool to invite conversation and connection. You don't have to use them if you don't want to, but if you do, it makes it a little bit more convenient to say, hey, you can come talk to me. And we also do that for tables. Some friends of ours from overseas during the election season from the UK were interested in talking about American politics. So they put a sign on their table that said, cynical Brits, and that table was packed with people talking to them for the rest of the night. So we're going to deliver a unique experience. We sell food and drink, but we deliver a unique experience. And to give you some insight into what that's really about, I'm just going to read through this perspective, because ultimately that's how we're going to be sustainable and going to provide our value to the community, moving people up the civic engagement ladder. I found this amazing place. It's a great restaurant and bar designed around the idea of fostering conversation, issues, meeting people, and learning. I always wanted a place where I could talk to other people interested in issues and change. I can't wait to go back. You have to come with me. For those of you who know anything about the food and beverage industry, word of mouth is the biggest driver of repeat business. This is the experience we're going to provide, and that's what we're going to deliver. But this isn't really about bars and restaurants. It's about gathering. And we all know this has been a core part of human existence throughout evolution. When we talk about the third place, it's best understood when compared with the first place and the second place. The first place is home. The second place is work. The third place is where you gravitate to when you're not at home and work. Where do you go to convene and actually be present with members of your community? This isn't an abstract idea or value. We've evolved and found ways to provide that and look for that. And that's really where this is rooted. This concept is rooted in that idea of the importance of community gathering places. And taverns have played that role, not just for gathering, but for catalytic change and conversations and rabble-rousing. They've been immortalized in paintings like this one and storied in our histories and connected to the American Revolution. But they've also been immortalized in our culture, right? And idolized in a way. And we put them up, oftentimes in our own lives, we don't have these kinds of experiences available to us, so we talk about them in our stories as if they were an imagined thing that could only exist, but we don't demand more of these in our own communities. Why not? Why don't we deserve a place where everybody knows our name too? This guy is named Ray Oldenburg. He wrote a book called The Great Good Place. He's a professor emeritus from the University of South Florida. The subtitle of the book is Cafes, Coffee Shops, Bookstores, Bars, Hair Salons, and Other Hangouts at the Heart of Community. Ray Oldenburg noticed the same thing I've been telling you about, and then he quantified it. He went across the country looking at patterns of community strength, looking at the roles of different regular bar and restaurants, chains, and owner-operated ones that actually played a special role in the community. What he found was that there was a pattern of these kinds of special institutions having a relationship with those communities that were more vibrant, engaged, and strong. What he also found alarmed him was that over the previous decades, these institutions had been increasingly disappearing from the American landscape. And he sounded the alarm, but unfortunately, very few people have paid attention or tried to do anything about this trend. It's not an abstract idea. The following chart is a summary of information from a 2006 index conducted by the National Conference on Citizenship, a congressionally chartered institution to track civic health in the United States. What they found, perhaps coincidentally, but we hypothesize not, is that in the same time that there was that downward trend in the number of third places in American communities, there was a concurrent downward trend in civic health. And this, again, is not an abstract idea. It has real implications that are tracked in sociological data that affect public health, general well-being, economic vitality, and as you've heard a little bit about, and I'll continue to tell more about, civic innovation and the opportunities to move our communities forward. So why hasn't this been addressed? Some of you may be familiar with the term of a wicked problem. This is a wicked, wicked problem, right? It's one thing to talk about something discrete and simple or a traditional problem. And people like those because they make sense. It's very easy to understand. And solutions don't require particularly complex thinking. Yes, you stay within the silo, and solutions require innovation, but it's discrete and understandable. Wicked problems are something totally different. They're oftentimes not fully understood. Many of them are not measurable. This one wasn't measurable until recently, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But solutions are also complicated as well. Sometimes they have to be indirect, and oftentimes they have to be disruptive. You can't try a simple solution on a wicked problem. You need to think more fundamentally and more holistically, and that's what we've done. Social capital is measurable. This gives you an idea of how wicked it is. Social capital is here, and this larger conglomeration is what measures community strength. It includes things like voter participation, community involvement, et cetera, but it also includes things like attachment, which means, do I love where I live? Is there a vibrant social life? Is it beautiful? Do I feel safe when I walk down the street? Robert Putnam is an academic who studied this. I could tell you a little bit more about him later. We're behind, so I'm going to skip a few slides. As you can tell, we're passionate about this. And our theory of change is that a purposeful tavern could do more. It's not just about providing that space for gathering and learning and connection, but by inviting individuals into the space, by seeding it with programming, we can enhance that natural opportunity and drive not only social capital and community building, but social and policy innovations that come out of those conversations, and increased collaboration and action among groups and individuals in the community as well. We've held 40 events at existing bars and restaurants, and our community has started to enjoy this. That's how we know that this concept can work, even though we've done it in the confines of a limited pilot kind of environment. And this is why we think that we've been able to be successful. We have an amazing team. We know and we are our market. We listen, we test, and we learn. We invite participation, and we're resourceful. Everything that we've done to date has been done for under a total cost of $10,000, with over 50 different individuals participating, including teams from 6 different universities around the country. Everybody who gets excited about this wants to get involved. So I mentioned our team briefly. My name is Todd Schechter. I have a master's in public administration from Wagner and a background in nonprofit strategy and documentary filmmaking. My partner Ryan has a deep experience in hospitality. He's run 300-seat restaurants for Mario Batali and Steve Hansen with Be Our Guest Restaurants. Other people who couldn't join us today are Joseph Sadden, who has a sales and digital marketing background. Kevin Baxter is an architect who managed the $40 million renovation of the Public Theater on Lafayette. And Sophia Chitlick, who's a political community organizer, one of the youngest people invited to join the Obama administration. And these are just representative of a much larger community of amazing talent and advisors who've joined us to try to help bring this vision to reality. So you might be thinking this is a food and beverage idea. That's great. Well, it's a competitive environment, and we've thought about that too. So as I mentioned before, we sell food and drink, but we offer an experience. And so when we think about our competitive environment, we think much broader. Where do people hang out? Where do they learn? And where do they go to gather? And so we think about offering what we're doing there. I've been notified that we're out of time, so I'd be happy to continue or receive questions if you'd like me to do that.
Thanks, guys. We'll go to questions.
Okay. Sure.
So now's the time to have a discussion with the judges. Anything you didn't cover in there? Who wants to kick it off? You look like you did, Jill.
I'm happy to. I find the idea intriguing. I work with a lot of clients who are in the civic engagement arena, and so I appreciate the point that it is a wicked and messy problem, and that sometimes it's difficult to draw a through line from an intervention to impact, but I find this intriguing. Tell me how you want the world to be different 10 years from now as the result of this. So I hear people gathering, people talking, but kind of what's the next evolution of that you would like this initiative to enable?
Thanks. The thing that we've discovered relatively recently is that the one thing that everyone on our team has in common is a passion for empowering individuals and communities to achieve their potential. And what we found is in addition to some of the perspectives that I've shared with you, there are a lot of individuals out there who could do more, who could achieve more, who could get more involved, but there isn't currently the environment that creates the opportunity to maximize that opportunity. So what we'd like to do is to bring this kind of space to every neighborhood in every American city so that every individual who wants to go and join a conversation, who wants to learn, who wants to be in an environment to potentially find out about an organization in a more informal way, has that place in their community that they love, and that getting involved has a lower barrier to entry than it does today. If we can do that for every American community, that's the stepping stone to the ultimate change that we want to see, which is a really true, actively vibrant, participatory, community-based democracy coming back to American cities to where it started.
So since you didn't have probably enough time to cover this,
Sure.
The idea is a little bit vague to me still. So
Okay.
What happens when I walk into the New American Tavern? What can I do there? And how is my experience different?
So one particular thing that would be immediately different is that you'll be greeted on your way in the door. So for newcomers, we have to explain that this is different from a regular restaurant and bar. So that you'd be welcomed into the New American Tavern. They would tell you a little bit about what it was. So it's not just a regular bar and restaurant, it's a space for learning and connection. You'd be notified about what activities were happening in the space at that time. So if there was a meetup that was going to be meeting there in half an hour or something, or if there was a panel discussion going on, that greeter would tell you about that, and they would also introduce you to those interactivity tools. So, oh, you're here alone. If you're interested in talking to some of the other people in the space, here are some tools we provide to allow you to invite conversation. If you'd been back, then we'll have a tracking system to make sure that we know our customers well. And so it's a matter of saying hello, reintroducing themselves, telling you about specific opportunities that coming week that might be of interest to you. And that's all on top of friendly service and good food and drink that you'd likely be coming back to enjoy again. So.
Okay. So it's a concept, right? It's like the Hard Rock, but for meetings in a way. We are living at a renaissance in craft beer and micro coffee and great wines, and there are shops that are opening up all over the country that are focusing primarily on them. And I'm thinking, why not just take one of those or two of those and take that meetup concept and work with them and cut a deal, as opposed to trying to do the whole restaurant food and beer thing? Because as it is, and you haven't really talked about this, what will keep you in business will be how many beers you sell and how much food people eat. Otherwise, your doors will close, correct?
Correct. So
why not, as opposed to trying to create your own restaurant or bar, or why not team up with an already existing place and take your concept in there?
So one of the things that we learned from hosting 40 events at 27 bars and restaurants in New York and talking to dozens more who didn't want to host an event like what we were hosting was that there are a number of different ways that you can interfere with the kind of environment and the experience that we're talking about. And each one of those things that's not holistically aligned is an opportunity for that interference. So, for example, sometimes we had an event that was related to the election season, and the regular customers at that bar and restaurant didn't know what was going on and were complaining to managers, so then it became a problem for them. Another event, we had a number of series of events we held at a place called Francis Tavern, which is a national historic landmark in Wall Street area. We held a regular series of events there that were going really well, but their business from Wall Street during the happy hour was starting to pick up, and then they started telling us different days of the week that we weren't going to be able to come, even though we had a growing community, because they were worried that it was going to interfere with their regular patronage. The other thing is that the connections between how we run the business, what our relationships are in the community, who's hired and why they're there, the service interaction of that hospitality experience matters too. And while we could probably work with local venues, and we plan to do that for pop-ups, to implement over the long term, it makes the most sense for us to have full control and the ability to grow that community and that business from the ground up. There's also architectural and furniture design considerations. So most of these places aren't designed for the kind of flexibility and group gatherings that we're going to be hosting. And that's another way for us to offer something unique as compared with the existing marketplace.
Your capital budget for what you need in order to sort of know whether it works or not, given the business model you decide, is about, I think, according to plan, $4 million, $4.5 million.
Yeah, here, this is the slide related to that.
And as you know, the average life of restaurants, right? You're in the restaurant business, right? It's sort of a binomial equation. It either hits or it doesn't, right? I think the average restaurant has stayed in business, 12, 18 months, something like that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, between 1 and 2 years.
All right, so what do you realistically can you accomplish with this prize money or with a smaller amount of money that you sit in front of a venture capitalist, you sit in front of somebody who's been in the restaurant business, because really you'd have to get capital from one of the guys who's been in the restaurant business. With this money, with the 50 grand or whatever small amount of money there is, what metrics specifically can you go to the guy with that you're hoping to achieve such that you can actually get this funded?
Yeah, so that sounds like two sort of separate question areas versus who we're getting the money from and what does that look like. And we're actually specifically not looking towards restaurant investors. Part of the other side of the answer to your question as well is long-term thinking. Different thinking in an existing industry requires different players thinking in a different way. And so we've already talked to the Rockefeller Foundation. They're interested in supporting potentially an arts and society program series with us. We've talked to a number of potential fiscal sponsors for a pop-up. I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but our implementation plan, to get to your question about the 50,000, is to move from events to a temporary pop-up before investing in the full brick and mortar. So that $4.5 million raise would include all of this process. And allow us to hire a team full-time and to smartly learn and build before making the $1.7 million investment in a brick-and-mortar venue. $50,000, I mentioned that we've done everything we've done over the past year for less than 10. It's an enormous amount of money for us and our team to be able to move forward, even though it's a small piece of that larger capital pie that we're going to need. What we'll go towards is supporting Events 2.0. So we're planning a much more regular series of events over the summer, and we'd like to have some resources to be able to do that. And we'd like to continue business development as it relates to corporate sponsorship. So we had a team at business school at Duke doing research on which sponsors might be interested in this in the same way that food and wine festivals are sponsored. And so that 50, we think, can help us create the events and have the time and the resources to be able to close deals around executing on a pop-up tavern, which we can do in a number of different ways. So the budget for that's between $300,000 and $500,000, which would cover all costs and doesn't include revenue opportunity. We think we can do it with sponsorship, but we can also do it with investment from outside sources as well. Does that answer your question?
Well, halfway. What are you looking? What metrics are you looking? What are you going to present? Right, is your social return? What metrics are you going to look at to the Rockefeller Foundation, to these other people that you're going to look in the pop-up?
Sure. So that complicated Venn diagram that I showed you before, each one of those subcircles is related to a series of measures that relate to different programs. So we've found the research out there that covers the broad range of what makes for strong communities, and we use that to design specific program logic models for each particular community-driven programming that we offer, and that's a series of measures that are specific to those programs. We also have separate logic models that relate to the value of the space as it relates to facilitating connection and learning. What we can demonstrate short-term with the pop-ups is less focused on the social impact, and that's why we're building the physical space. This kind of change, at least from the way that we look at it, is going to require a long-term physical, permanent presence in a community to really shift the bar. But what we can use that money for is to further reduce risk related to the market opportunity, to show that there's a community of interest, and to continue to build validity around what we've learned so far and what we've presented for you to hear today. And 50,000, we think we can take it to like a totally different level.
So if you're going after philanthropic or socially oriented funding, I think you have to be able to show that you executing on those bubbles, you're doing a better job than the other nonprofits or organizations that are doing similar things. So how do you know that's going to be the case? Kind of what initiatives have you set up against those different bubbles? And a subset of that is, are you having other organizations come in, or is this all homegrown programming?
Yeah, so in terms of the way that we work totally collaboratively with community organizations. In hosting the 40 events that we held, we reached out to organizations to collaborate with us, to partner with us, and organizations found out about what we were doing and asked to join a number of those events. And so we plan to do that in this space, only filling the gaps to create new kinds of program formats. So for example, during the Coney 2012 conversations, you guys are familiar, there was a viral video that was related to arresting a warlord in Uganda. There was a lot of people who were concerned about this, so we had a rapid response panel and community event. Instead of a Q&A after an extended panel, we had a 20-minute panel, and then we dispersed the panelists to table-based conversations, and that was most of the event. So the audience's expertise was honored as well, and people stayed long after the official close of the event to have those conversations. From the impact investment side, yes, we need to have our stuff together. And at the end of the day, the opportunity for us in this competition, as much as the money is value, is more about the win. This is a wicked solution to a wicked problem, and it's out-of-the-box disruptive thinking, and foundations are not known for making investments in those kinds of ideas. With the certification that would come from this win, we can go back to the communities that are already interested. We can go to philanthropic investors with donor-advised funds as well and get both debt and equity investment, as well as philanthropic capital through a fiscal sponsorship arrangement that we've set up. So we have a number of channels set in place. What we need is the certification that can help us close the deal, to get a first mover on board with a significant investment, and that's where this competition can make a big difference for us.
Can you tell us a bit about the revenue model for the events that you've hosted so far? And if you believe that's been a good revenue model, again, back to the earlier question about is there a need for a dedicated space of your own, if that has worked so far? Just curious about that.
So we haven't charged for our events. That was an intentional decision. The idea was to see how does our audience respond to the traditional food and beverage offerings that are available there. So our guests would come and buy food and drink at the locations in whatever way they would, as if it was our location. And we were operating it as a food and beverage business. What we tried to do was to make arrangements with these locations so we could collect data, and a lot of them agreed to do that, but then actually getting them to follow through on giving us reports that had sectioned out those revenue models was different. I will say that the venues that we held events in wanted us to come back, and so that's usually a sign that they're making more money than they would have made otherwise.
Can I add on to that one?
Sure.
Well, first I wanted to say that I love the idea of you're trying to get rid of the end, or to create the end of apathy in this country. That would be awesome. So you had 40 events, and according to your plan, you had around 1,000 people, so 20-some people per event. And what kind of data do you have, or what sense do you have that if you build it, they will come? I mean, because in your plan, you show many turns, right? You show full breakfast, full lunch, in between, and dinner. And are people really going to be talking over breakfast or over snacks about all these issues?
So I think there's 3 different pockets.
There might be 7.
Yeah.
8.
So I'm happy to address them all. So the first one was about how do I know people are going to come back?
Or come in the first place.
So you said the numbers. So those numbers are actually inaccurate in terms of how it broke down. The 1,000 included a lot of repeat guests. Some of our events were much larger scale, so they invited like over 250 people. Some were much smaller scale. There's a platform called Grub With Us, for example, where you host a dinner for people who don't know each other. They pay in advance for dinner, and those would be like 8 people would show up. We had 1 or 2 of those events. What's interesting about Grub With Us in particular is that we set up a page for the New American Tavern, and we're really busy with a lot of other things, and it's become the biggest group in New York. It's framed as an opportunity to have dinner with people in New York around politics and policy, and over 300 people have joined all through that platform. There's organic need here. I could also talk, there's tons of organizations that are hosting these kinds of events, but very few that have taken this to a physical venue. With one particular exception, and I didn't have a chance to go through this, but for those of you unfamiliar with Busboys and Poets, they opened in 2005 in Washington, D.C., their first location. They've been phenomenally successful. It's a bookstore, cafe, restaurant, bar, and event space with a stage. Part of their brand relates to social justice issues. They're very involved with the community. They have a really strong following. They've since opened 3 additional locations in the DC area, and they're looking to expand elsewhere. We talked to the owner. I think what they're doing is like awesome. They handle food and beverage really well. I know we have the right team to execute on that as well, but they're not doing as much as they could do to activate the community through interactive tools, and their social justice positioning closes the gates to other people who we think could be involved in a more diverse conversation. I think there was a third one. I don't know if you were. Sorry.
Just one go ahead. What happens when you have an event then? Do you have to have a moderator, a facilitator? Because you're going to have an event and you're going to have the Republicans and the Democrats and you're going to talk politics and beers are going to be flying. And who's going to moderate that? Is that extra staff or does a waiter do that?
So and this goes back to your question of why not? Well, actually, no, it's funny, but it's also something that we've talked about. And that's where the pop-ups become our opportunity to really test things on a different scale. So when we're working at existing bars and restaurants, we can't go in and train their staff because they don't really care about us and they don't want to do it on how to be facilitators. But if we're going to have a multi-week long experience, we train our own staff, then we have the opportunity to test out different models. There are really interesting organizations who are playing with exactly that very polarized relationship that you talked about. One's in Los Angeles. It's called Rebellious Truth. It brings Tea Partiers and Occupy Wall Street members together for like day-long facilitated sessions. I have a relationship with a guy named Mark Gershon. He's run collaborative private sessions for members of Congress. And we have other experienced and facilitation design members on our team who are starting to help think through that design. There's other interesting kind of fun ways too. This is a headband. It says, "I just came to say hello." Like, it's really goofy, but like people like it. It's a different way to kind of de-energize some of the angst. But it's something that we'll figure out as we move along. And it's not just about politics. To your question about are people going to be talking about this stuff all day long? No, it's a bar and restaurant. It's a space. There'll be quiet times when people are having a cup of coffee or working on their laptop. Maybe someone will have a sign on their desk that says, "I'm a writer. I'm writing about green energy. If you have any information, you can come talk to me." But then there'll be times of the day when it's much more active. And programming actually helps us fill the space during those times of day you asked about, because we can schedule organizations to use the space during non-peak times, which allows us to have a really organic, natural way to get more business that feels more authentic to what we're doing than when you have trivia night in the neighborhood sports bar or something like that, unless it's sports related or something like that.
If I wanted to come there and just get wasted.
Yeah.
Could I do that?
Sure.
So
you have so many other places to go to.
So is there's a fine line between a social mission and debauchery. How do you address that? How do you control that?
Well, there's laws like that aren't really enforced around excessive consumption of alcohol. And like as an organization that's committed to the community and inviting a diverse audience, that's something that we're going to be sensitive to. I don't know if you want to. There's a whole school of expertise related to the nuance of how an effective bouncer type individual manager can diffuse the situation. Sometimes it's bringing someone to a different part of the room. Luckily, we have a very large space. That's one of the reasons for the large capital cost, 300 seats, multiple rooms. So sometimes it's just helping bring people apart, helping distract someone with something else. But the more drunker you are, the easier it is to distract somebody from something. So, but again, this is where our hospitality experts can come in and really help manage those kinds of situations. It's not all about politics. There will be political programming. It's really about this much broader tent of civic engagement, social issues, local issues, and just talking about stuff that matters generally. You know, where do you go? If you don't know what you're doing that night, you don't know about a particular event, but you want to go out, where's that place that you can drop in? We want to provide that. People are looking for it.
Is there any plan to measure the impact of the tavern above and beyond number of visitors?
Yeah, so there's 3 different ways that we've thought about effective ways that we can do that measurement over time. The first way is random guests who come through the space and are using Wi-Fi. So as you know, many places have free Wi-Fi. You have to sign in with a password or whatever else. So what we'd like to do is to integrate survey questions into that experience. So if you want to log on, you have to answer a few questions. We also want to have a membership program. But you don't pay to be a member, you participate. And the participation means showing up every once in a while or being involved in some of the events that are happening there, and then filling out a survey periodically. That would be a much more lengthy survey that touches on all those circles that we mentioned. So the benefits of being a member would be you'd be participating, and there would be certain private events just for members, and that would be incentivized filling out these probably not so fun forms. And then we'd also like to partner with organizations like the National Conference on Citizenship to look at our longer potential impact on the neighborhood. We don't have the capacity or the resources to do that on our own, but we want the thought partnership so that we can improve our programs, and so that over the long term, when we have to provide more evidence to scale to get additional resources on board, that we have that track record of impact, of improving our impact, and we can show that data to the organizations and individuals who will be asking for it.
The target audience that you are hitting on is 22 to 25 or something like that, is that right?
Yeah, I can share some specifics.
And are those spenders, do they have the money, or are they going to show up, buy one beer, and sip it all night long and have no money to buy any food?
So we've conducted 3 primary market research studies, 2 of which were conducted by teams at the Ross School of Business, one of which was conducted by a team here at NYU Stern. And what we found is that we have 2 target markets. The primary target market is this, which has these criteria, and the secondary target market's a little bit older as well. You'll notice that neither one has a particularly high average income, but as it turns out, these are exactly the groups that are most likely to be out spending time, money, and energy at bars and restaurants. It's for a number of different reasons. 1, they're largely single and don't have kids. 2, they're young, and that's like young people like to be out and about. And 3 is a lot of these people don't have big apartments or big spaces, particularly in city. And so one of the social aspects that taverns provide, and a part of that experience and the reason for our size, is just the idea of being able to spend time in a big room. When you have like a small apartment and you have a small cubicle, becomes part of the experience and what's worth spending the money for. And so yeah, that was our hunch, and then our market research data backs it up.
All right, guys, we're out of time. Please thank Todd and Ron. Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, I just want to quickly say everybody after the reception today, we live our values. And so we're going to be at the Half Pint, and we invite you all to join us if you'd like to talk more. First round's on us. So.
We know Hans is going to be there. All right, we're brief transition, then be back with our 3rd and final team in the social venture competition. See you soon. Okay, let's get into the third and final of the pitches for the social venture competition. If everyone could quickly find their seats, please, and we'll get this kicked off. It's my pleasure to introduce Kinvolved. Miriam, Alexandra, and Barry are here. Again, the rules are 10 minutes to pitch, to get their story across, and then they'll have 20 minutes to interact with the judges. So Kinvolved is changing the American education system by simplifying how teachers take attendance. I would like that. I would like that. Instantly involving families and building community partnerships to bring youth back into the classroom. Warm welcome for Kinvolved, please.
The United States is currently facing a tremendous epidemic. 1/3 of our nation's high school students are not graduating each year. These students are being robbed of their academic potential and are imposing a huge cost on society, since each dropout costs us about $240,000 over the course of his or her lifetime in aggregated costs of healthcare abuse, poverty, incarceration, and so forth. And teachers right now do not have the effective tools to change this. And attendance is a main indicator of graduation and long-term success, and that is why we are focusing on attendance. But right now, teachers do not have the appropriate tools to solve this problem. This is a paper Scantron-based system that teachers are using right now to record attendance. This is a computer system that teachers are using, and they report it as hard to use and not effective in communication with parents, since this is the parent report that parents can get by logging into the system, and this information is indecipherable. And in fact, it takes about 2 weeks on average for parents to get this information if their child is absent today with the slowest of these systems. This is time we cannot afford to lose. However, based on our experiences in the classroom and in the community, we're changing this. Kinvolved believes that by simplifying attendance and instantly involving families, we have a real shot at getting these kids in school. Our model is based on 3 parts. We have developed a comprehensive software program that allows teachers to record, report, and communicate information in real time. The architecture of the backend allows for instant data analysis of trends and behavior to print out reports that parents can understand with real data. And we're driving real results by taking technology and pairing it with community-based organizations that can lend support to schools. The first part I'm going to explain is real time, and this is going to change things. We're providing a resource for teachers that they don't have right now. This is a software program that they can log in on their smartphone or computer and instantly record student attendance in about a minute. They know who's here, who's not right away, and it gets better. Information is sent to the cloud, and it is stored at the school record, the teacher record, the district record, and now right away, families are engaged. They get a simple SMS or email in their hand, and we know that instantly providing this information is going to change things, because decades of research shows that improving family engagement improves students' course scores, behavior in schools, and graduation rates. And what's even better, we're radically changing the time it takes. Current systems are taking 2 weeks. We are taking 2 minutes to involve families, and this is only the beginning. This is dramatically faster, and now Miriam is going to explain the second 2 parts of our approach and her experiences in the classroom.
As a teacher here in New York City through Teach for America, I know firsthand the effects that attendance can have on students' academic outcomes. I want to explain to you how this worked with a student I had in my class named Samantha. Samantha was in my class when she was in 10th grade, and within the first 2 months of school, she'd already missed 80% of the school days. And of course, as a result, was failing all of her classes. Initially, I thought that our school was giving her mother this attendance information, and her mom simply didn't care. But when I met Samantha's mom at conferences at the end of October that year, I realized that I was totally wrong. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was simply that Samantha's mom did not know that her daughter had such a severe truancy problem. Once Samantha's mom and I were able to meet, we were able to intervene. We got her attendance back on track, and I'm happy to say that this spring she'll be graduating from Park West High School here in New York City and plans to attend St. John's University in the fall. This is a tremendous success story, but this is just one student. Because I met Samantha's mother in a one offhand meeting, we were lucky to have an intervention with her. But there are thousands of students who do not have this benefit. So the second part of our model is to provide a tool within our software platform that allows teachers and administrators to identify students who have an attendance problem in the palm of their hand. This is how it works. This is an example of a report for a student like Samantha, for example. We can see Samantha's attendance on the left, her school's attendance on the right, and just by looking at the red, which indicates absenteeism, identify right away that she's got a serious attendance problem. As a teacher, I can flip through all of these graphs in a matter of minutes for my students and quickly identify all of those kids who have an attendance problem. So now that we know this information, what are we going to do about it? This is where the third piece of our model comes in. We're providing schools with a system that actually records the reason for absenteeism, something no other system does today. So at Park West, for example, the administrator can identify that bullying, indicated in the purple, is a major problem and kids are not coming to school because of it. How do we know this? We know this because teachers are recording this information where they're taking the attendance, and parents and students are able to text into the app anonymously reason for absenteeism. So now that we have this information, we are able to enact the third part of our model, which is to facilitate community partnerships with organizations like the United Way, for example, which has an anti-bullying program to attack the underlying causes of absenteeism for a school like Park West. With Convolve system, there is no more getting lucky with offhand meetings with parents. We are using real communication with parents in real time, real student data, and driving real results by getting resources from the community into the classroom. The exciting thing is that we're already well on our way. We conducted an alpha test last summer, got great user feedback, rolled that into the current beta tests being used right now in New York City. As we continue to grow and expand, our plans are to graduate in about 2 weeks and actually work on this full time. And our anticipation is that we'll continue our reach even further from there in the next school year. As a real registered social venture, we are a B-certified company, one of the first in New York State, and have gotten the support of several key institutions in the time we've been working together over the last 12 months. Our team is quite passionate about our mission. As I mentioned, I was a teacher here in New York through Teach for America. Alex has experience working with parents in the healthcare system in the Bronx. And Barry has experience working in business development for the online education platform Donors Choose. So now I'm going to turn it over to Barry, who's going to explain the financial benefits of Convolve system for a school like Park West.
So Park West has options. They can choose from the two packages you see here, a standard package at $5,000 per year and a premium package at $9,000 per year. The standard package includes our education software and some support, whereas the premium package also includes consulting and data analytics. And both of these are charged to the school or to the district. But why would a school like Park West decide to pay for our program? Schools are actually paid and funded based on the number of students in the classroom, which means that when a student isn't in the classroom, that school is missing out on critical funding, about $30 per student per day. So with average attendance like Park West's, they're leaving over $1 million on the table in a given school year just because of their attendance rates. But with just a 5% bump in attendance, they're able to increase that revenue to $270,000 in that school year, which means that that $9,000 investment in Convolve's premium package is a no-brainer. And schools love this. 20 out of 20 schools we've spoken to want to sign up. But we know we need to reach more than just 20 schools to have a real impact. So we're using two distribution strategies. The first is a bottom-up approach where we're partnering with organizations such as City Year, Teach for America, and the United Way to gain access to their broad teacher networks across the country. In fact, we're in constant communication with all three of these organizations. The second distribution strategy is from the top down, which is partnering with huge education technology platforms such as Pearson PowerSchool to ensure that we can reach millions of students and thousands of teachers instantaneously. And with these distribution strategies, just a very small market penetration makes a huge difference for our financial statements. When we're reaching 75 schools, we're already a sustainable venture. And here you can see a little bit more about our financials. It's important to realize that the sooner we're sustainable, the sooner we're scalable, and we can reach millions more students like Samantha who are at risk of dropping out. And in fact, we're already going to be sustainable in August of 2014. But why is this so important right now in the United States education system and the United States society as a whole? Every 30 seconds, an American student drops out of school, which means that during this 10-minute presentation, over 20 students have dropped out. And that extends to the year. It actually costs the United States society over $368 billion over the course of these students' lifetimes. But it doesn't have to be this way, and Convolved is the answer. Today, we're using real-time communication between parents and teachers, real data analysis and recommendations, and driving real results to get students back in the classroom and to revolutionize the American education system. We are Convolved, and today we invite you to get on board. Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about, you said right now you're either an alpha or beta. Where is the technology platform right now? What tweaks need to be added to it? What have what are sort of the hurdles in adoption that you see?
Sure. So we have gone through the alpha test last summer and currently are underway at the beta test. And we are using a version of the app that cannot be scaled in terms of the data that needs to be held in the back end. So we are working with a larger firm moving forward that we are contracting out, and we actually have a meeting with right after this presentation. So we are currently developing a much more comprehensive platform. So we have that currently underway. We're very confident in that. In terms of integration, are you?
Well, what specifically is the platform, right? I mean, what's the technological vision? Is it to hand out an iPad or to use an iPhone, or in the classrooms the teachers are going to have? What's the physical technology?
So right now we've developed this platform as a web app, as opposed to a native app. So this web app can be used on a smartphone, an iPad, an iPod Touch even, or a computer.
So all the teachers need to have an iPhone in order, so you go into the cloud, so you go onto a website or something, you go into the cloud, the roll comes down, and then you hit whatever it is, and then that data is
stored in the back end on a cloud
is
server.
Is stored in the back? Okay.
Yes.
So the teachers need to have some access to the internet in their classroom.
Yes, they do. And New York City, in their technical budget for the next fiscal year, is actually putting a huge push into not only having landline internet, but including Wi-Fi within all of New York City public schools. And we're finding that most schools do have access to computers. However, we have come across that as an issue with one teacher in a school. And it was actually, we were able to intervene and advocate for that teacher to get a computer.
And then to have the parents notified, so if this data goes up into the cloud, and then if they're not there, then there's a text message that then gets sent to the parents' cell phones?
Yes, whatever cell phone is registered as the contact. Yeah. However, it does not necessarily need to be the parent. It can be whatever, whether it's a basketball coach, a social worker, someone within the community that really cares about that child's education can be registered.
And have those numbers, how have the alpha and beta tests worked in terms of just percentage-wise of the students that are in the alpha and beta test? What percentage have you had a phone number associated with? Or how much of a hurdle in adoption is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at the beginning of every year, the parent must provide on a card their cell phone or their contact information. So I would say it's about 90 to 95% of users or parents do provide that cell phone information. And however, if that contact information is not there, it gives the teacher the opportunity to access that.
Great, thank you.
I thought you did a very nice job on your presentation. It was also very nice to see all three of you participate and to show that you're all fully engaged as part of the team. And I think it's also really nice that you're taking a very distinct problem and trying to solve that as opposed to trying to solve everything all at once. But what is the ratio of attendance to graduation? Does anybody know that?
Yeah, so we can actually, there's a very interesting study that has recently come out of the Chicago schools. And as we can see here, graduation rates are actually very comparable to the days a student spends in school. As you can see, with some students missing up to 30 days of school per year, and in the lowest of income communities, that is about 50% of kids that are missing a month of school per year. Their rate of graduation is at 2%. So there is a distinct relationship between days in school and attendance. Or in graduation.
Okay.
Tell us about the customer acquisition process. For a decision of this size, of this financial size, does that decision take place at the school level, the school district level? And based on that, what is the best mechanism for you to roll out the business in the short term? Is it with big school districts? Is it with individual schools, small school districts, private schools, charter schools?
Sure. So it depends. And some districts, it takes less time, usually smaller districts, and some districts takes more time. But even in New York City, they say that it's only about 2 months, and that process is already underway for us. But in addition to the traditional school partnership strategy, we're also doing what I mentioned, which is the 2 other distribution strategies. So the bottom-up approach, partnering with organizations. So for example, with Teach for America, we'd be able to get Teach for America to fund those teachers, and so they would be able to use the program in their schools and use word-of-mouth networking to sort of bring it from the bottom up, almost a grassroots campaign. And then also partnering with education technology platforms, as I also mentioned, that would also allow us to bypass that time that it takes to get into schools in the traditional partnership.
So Teach for America teacher would not need permission from the school district to utilize the tool. They could just go ahead and use it if it's funded by Teach for America.
Yes.
Or in the case of the New York City School District, can the decision be taken at the school level, or is it at the city district level? The school district level?
Sorry, did you say in New York City?
Yeah, for New York City, for example, is the decision of this financial size a decision at the school level, or is it a decision at the city level?
So in New York City, principals make these decisions. So principals are kind of the CEOs of their schools. And so they are able to make that decision.
So you have a lot more customers in New York City than just the city itself.
Right, exactly. And having access in that way allows us to, again, use that strategy where we're able to get teachers on board and then sort of work our way up.
In the studies that you've done, can you tell us a little bit about usage? So a teacher is using the program, but have you found that they're entering the data every day? And what % of parents are kind of engaging in a back and forth?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of the teacher and school-facing work, and basically at the school we're working in, it's been adoption across the board by all the teachers. They're taking the attendance every day. It is a behavioral change where they need to start taking it at the beginning of the period always. And we're seeing that since December that we've been working with these schools, these early adopters, that they've been actually changing their behavior and doing this because they see an effect. While we don't have the actual quantitative numbers yet from our beta test because it's still going on until the end of May, we've gotten a really great sense just verbally through qualitative responses from teachers and parents and students about the effectiveness. So we know that parents are communicating with their teachers, with their kids' teachers, when there's an absence issue or a lateness issue. They're emailing or they're calling into the school. And because teachers are seeing these responses, it incentivizes them to change their behavior and make sure they're taking attendance every day because they know that they're having an effect. In the summer, we're going to be doing the entire quantitative data sort of processing.
Have you seen a statistically significant difference in attendance rates in the beta school? If you look at across different, if you take the peer school, same demographics, same whatever, or is it too soon to analyze that data?
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of data that we're going to be analyzing over the summer. So we don't have it all yet, since, like I said, the beta is still going on. But what we do know is that, for example, in a 4th grade teacher's classroom we're working with, she reported that she showed her students the first day she started using the platform that we have on her smartboard, and said, when I take the attendance, this is what's going to happen. Your parents can get this message. And she said that she has 2 kids who routinely show up late because they're at the bodega or whatever they're doing outside of school. And then immediately the next day, they started coming to school on time. So it's not just actually changing the behavior of parents. it's actually changed the behavior of kids because they're being held accountable as well. So it's that kind of like qualitative stuff that we have so far.
And one of the adoption to a lot of in the public schools, a huge barrier to adoption in the public schools has been to anything that changes the teacher's life or is the teachers' unions, right? Have there been any comments from the the UFT, or I assume you were very early, so you may not have gotten up there, but can you just talk to that dynamic? You worked at Teach for America, so you're familiar with it. Just talk through that.
Yeah, so actually as it happens, the attendance coordinator at one of our beta schools is actually also the union representative at the school, so that alone speaks, I think, volumes to the fact that there's union support, even though he's one individual. I think that he's been in that position for 10 years or so, and he's really excited about the program and doesn't see it as being a problem for teachers, because it actually is reducing teachers' time recording attendance and communicating with parents, because if they don't have this system, they're technically supposed to be making the phone calls every day. So actually the unions are pretty excited about it because it's reducing the time that's expected of teachers.
So I have two questions. The first one that relates to this is, okay, I'm a parent and my kid has missed the whole day. Have I just received 7 texts? And is that the case? No?
So we are making the program customizable per the teacher's desires. You have some teachers that don't care, and they want the parent to know right away because the child's not there. However, there are teachers that are raising this concern, and they can set it so that it sends out one digestible message every day. We've held a lot of focus groups with parents actually to hear what they're saying, since this is going to change the way that they're communicating with schools. And parents would prefer, some want to know right away of a high school student because it's really out of their control a bit more, but then, a younger student, one text message off would be sufficient. So that is able to change based upon the desires of the customer.
Okay, great. The other question was, is there a whole business here? I think it's interesting, it seems useful, but I mean, is this going to support 3 people full time, or where does this go? What does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, so we do think that this is a full business. We've already, as you know, dedicated about a year plus of our time to really growing this, and we are going to start charging revenues, which is very exciting, starting in September. And we've seen that customers have a real willingness to pay for this product, both at the basic and the premium level. We also have seen, we gave you some updated financials there that have a few different line items in them. Also teachers, as Alex mentioned, who are really interested in adopting. And these people are willing to pay for this service because it's really cutting down on their time that they're required to call parents if they're not communicating with them via text message. So there really is a real willingness to pay. And we're seeing that there's a real desire for this. I mean, so far, as Barry mentioned, we've talked to 20 schools and they're all really excited. We know that there are going to be some schools that are not going to need our programming because they have a good attendance or what have you. But there's really a serious need for this out there. We can see in the data, but also just from our work, in the field and talking to schools, we know that there really is.
How do you plan to measure success at the beta sites? And secondly, how much time do you need? What do you need to know from them before you're ready to go out and make your first sale and convert them to real customers and others to real customers?
Yeah, so I think what Michael was getting at earlier was that a big piece of what we need to do is look at the attendance data, compare it at the school, for example, first of all. Compare it at the beginning, before we started the beta, or right at the beginning, and then compare it to the attendance by the end of the year and see the shift that's happened there. What we project is about a 5% shift, which sounds kind of small, but as Barry told you, I mean, at an average sized school, that has a huge financial return for schools in federal funding. And so there's a real incentive to make this change, and there's a real impact that can happen from this. So we're going to measure the school data compared to itself, within the school, and then also compare it to peers. So in this particular school that we're working in, they have a peer school that's actually right on site. A lot of schools in New York City are sharing space. And so, for example, we could compare it to that school. Very similar conditions, similar student body, same neighborhood, all of that, same age group. So that would be how we're doing that. And we want to make sure that we're really seeing this real success that we're anticipating from the qualitative feedback we've gotten of this 5% increase. And that's only going to make our sales pitch to customers that we're already making for the fall. Even without this data, we're getting people signing on. It's only going to make it stronger.
So when do you expect to close, to finalize, or to measure that data at Park West? When would you expect to convert that to a sale?
For Park West, our plan is to, as soon as we graduate, be working on this for the entire month of June, really working hard. We've hired 2 graduate student interns who are going to be working with us to help us with this as well. And so we think that the data we'll have a real study done by that time. And we anticipate also by that time to have already converted this information to sales even without the data, and then just continue to expand out to further schools
So
from
Park
there.
West ready to sign a check?
Yeah, that's what they've said.
In the business plan, there was a fair amount about the consulting services. And what's your priority? I mean, is it getting a tech platform out there, or is it growing a tech and consulting business?
So we are focusing in tandem on both of these pieces because while the tech is very important, we have a highly skilled development firm that's working on that. And I'm overseeing the project management of that to ensure that that gets done. However, what is highly valuable about our company is that we're not just giving a school a tech product, like a lot of one-off tech products are that I showed you. That's really not showing a measurable change in student behavior. And we are also now, we are spending the entire summer to refine our data consulting model, working with experts in the field as well as some of our mentors. And we believe that by providing that additional step of that data consulting to show schools what does it mean that a kid is not there for 5 days versus 50 days, that will be a huge part, and we are going to be implementing that in the fall with the 20 out of 20 schools.
I have another question. Is it possible that the teachers don't want the kids that are going to be absent in their classrooms?
Yes, I can speak to that. Yeah, I mean, certainly that's a very good question. Yeah, some kids do cause a challenge for teachers, and teachers may perhaps rather not have them there. But what I've seen, I can speak from my own experience, is when the most important thing is to show a kid that you care. And by caring, whether the kid is there or not, is a step in the right direction. And something that perhaps if you're more interested in, Alex can speak to more, is that in addition to showing this concern, we're also adding in a positive incentive system to the app as well to encourage kids to come to school. And I think that this is just sort of part of a bigger picture of showing concern for a student has a real effect on making them perform better and behave better in the classroom.
That shows a concern or it shows a fear? Well, I mean, because the app is saying you're not, you're going to get in trouble. You're not here. We're watching you.
Right, but so I can explain the first piece of the positive incentives, and this is something we're rolling out in the next version of the app. So what we anticipate doing right away is having an automated text that goes home every Friday, for example, that says, congratulations, you've been here 5 days, you get maybe 5 points. We're working that kind of system in, and we've been talking a lot to different, our customers about how to really do that, and that's why we haven't quite mentioned it yet because we're not sure. But that's something that we're working on because we don't want this to just be a penalty system by any means, and so that's really important. It's a good point to bring up.
I think your point, that idea is pretty good too, of using that reward system. You could go positive rewards for those kids, and they could earn certain things, right?
Yeah, schools have been really interested in that. We're just fleshing out the details.
Okay. One more question.